Let's get into it. I want to tell you a little bit about what narrative wayfinding is. First, I probably should explain what wayfinding is. Wayfinding is, and everyone can see my presentation, right? Can you give me a thumbs up to let me know I'm on the right? Okay, great. So wayfinding is information systems that guide people through physical environments. Everyone's pretty familiar with these kinds of systems. They are stop signs. Red means stop. Everybody knows that. Taxis are yellow. Green means go. There are a lot of different examples of wayfinding, mostly in transit or trying to figure out like how to get from one place to the next. If you're in a mall and you need to figure out how to get to Hot Topic, you're going to look for that kiosk, and then you're going to figure out that it's store number 2718, and then you'll figure out whatever convoluted method you're going to take to get there. And while it's super important to have different structures for wayfinding, it also, I think in a way, takes away from some of the autonomy that people have. It's really, a lot of these examples are given to people by governing bodies of whatever kind. And so when you have a system that's given to you by someone else, it's not always something that you feel a lot of ownership of. And so when we create a system for ourselves to do something, it means something very different than when something's given to us. And so narrative wayfinding, in my conceptualization of it, is the creation of story-based information systems that we can use to guide ourselves through life. I can see people writing things down. It's an excellent idea. If you want to take notes, I highly recommend it. Also, I would really like for people to have something to write with, or to be on some program online that you can type stuff, because I'm going to ask you some questions, and then you're going to take the answers of those questions to the group activity. Great. So let's talk about a few stories that define us. Some of my favorite examples of common stories that shape reality are astrology, Myers-Briggs, the Chinese zodiac, where, you know, it's a year of, it's the year of the dragon, or it's the year of the monkey. And then also the, you have one of my favorite systems for wayfinding, which is the Harry Potter Hogwarts houses. If you know anything that's related if you know any of these external systems that are related to you, I want you to write them down at this point. So if you know that you're a Slytherin, then write that down. If you know, so I'm an ENFP in Myers-Briggs, so write that down. I'm a dragon, so I would write that down. And I'm a Virgo, which I would write down. So if you know any of these things, then you write them down. Yeah, there's the Enneagram. I think I'm a number 9 in there. There's lots of different versions of these, which is really fun. So I looked up one of them. I went to horoscope.com to check out what my fortune of the day would be. And it said that today is going to be an excellent day for meeting interesting people. And I'm really excited about that because I get to meet you all today. Is that predestiny? Is this like a really beautiful thing that showed up at horoscope.com just for me? I don't know. Probably not. It's probably confirmation bias, but I'm happy that I saw it, and I'm happy that you're here. While I was on that website, I took a screenshot of this because as we're going over these narrative wayfinding strategies, one really important element of it, and I'm going to send you a worksheet later in the week that describes some of these concepts. So if I'm talking really fast or going through it too fast, you'll get kind of a cheat sheet later on with some of the things that I'm talking about. But essentially, if you take a starting point, like I wonder what my fortune is for today and how I might be able to apply it to this presentation that I'm about to give. That's your starting point. And then you start to kind of look for signs that show up that are related to that starting point. So I saw that there was a card of the day, which you can see says the Magician, and that's a tarot card. And I love mysticism. So I was like, oh, that's really fun. I'll read that. And it said that the Magician tarot card represents someone at the beginning of their journey. The path is new, but they have no fear. They have all the tools they need. And what a great example of confirmation bias for the day, because I can't really imagine a better card of the day to have for a session where I'm going to describe a bunch of different things that are related to wayfinding and finding your way and all these things. So again, predestinate, I don't know, maybe, but we did this already, I think. But if you can think of any, feel free to write them down. If you want to put them into the chat, you can. Again, make sure you have these because we're going to use them for later. So some interesting things that I want to mention are, I kind of want to dive into the Hogwarts houses because they're a really good example of what I'm asking when I'm telling somebody to create a narrative system that they can then choose or find meaning and opportunity from. If you look at these as a starting point, we'll take Gryffindor, for example. People who are Gryffindors are courageous and chivalrous and daring and maybe short-tempered. If you're familiar with the Harry Potter books, and I don't think this is a spoiler because everyone should know this or not care at this point, but Harry Potter is in the Gryffindor house and he was put in there, but then maybe he also could have been Slytherin. So I think that in many of these examples, you end up with characteristics that are fairly general that you can kind of choose. And one of the great things about having a narrative system that kind of determines your trajectory is that it takes some of the pressure off of you just living your everyday life. If I'm in the subway and there's an altercation and I need to be brave to try and intervene or to help out with the situation, I might think to myself, if I don't act, I might think, oh man, I'm such a coward. And that kind of sucks. And it puts a lot of pressure on me to like do the right things at the right time and whatever. And for right now, if I can in that moment say that I'm a Gryffindor instead of thinking that I'm a coward, I might just think that I'm being a bad Gryffindor, which again takes a lot of the pressure off of just everyday life. So part of the reason that all these characteristics exist is because they're related to the house sigil, which is a lion. So you see these a lot in different mediums like Game of Thrones and other things. So what I'd like you to do is to write down any animals that you might really like. If you have a favorite animal, write that down. If you know any animals that are significant to you, like for me, sharks are really significant, but I wouldn't say it's like my spirit animal. If you want to write it in the chat, you can write it so that people can see them. Which is I'm seeing people writing elephant, buffalo, dolphin. These are great. So we're going to talk more about, you're going to talk more about these animals in your group. And these are going to end up as starting points, which I'll explain more later. So another big concept of creating a wayfinding system that has to do with animals or elements or things like that, which I incorporate into my systems are signs. And I kind of just want to talk about signs really quick so that I can, we can have a definition that we can all use. A sign is just an object, event, entity whose presence or occurrence indicates the probable presence of something else. I was thinking a lot about stop signs over the last week, which sounds silly, I guess, but when you see a stop sign, really what that means is that there's oncoming traffic. And the objective of that sign is to tell you to stop, but in reality, what it should tell you to do is be cautious because there's oncoming traffic, and then stop to prepare for moving through that intersection. And in a way, by creating a law that tells people to stop at a stop sign, it stops people from really thinking creatively or inventively about why they should stop. This is a guess. If you think often about other people while you're driving, then you're a great driver, and I applaud that. But I think a lot of people don't. And so it would be really cool, as I walk you through how I developed a system that used narration in order to find opportunity, for you to think about, like, what are the signs that led me to somewhere else? Or what are these places that allow me to attach value that presents a path for me to walk down? So I want to tell you about Year of the Fish. As you can see, I have a fish shirt on right now. I like fish shirts. I think they're really fun. In 2016, it was about to be the year of the monkey. And I was with my friends, who I love a lot. And I had taken this fish shirt from my dad that I just really liked. And I grew up fishing with my dad, and I like incorporating metaphor into my life. And so fishing has a lot of themes. And I ended up wearing this shirt on New Year's, and a lot of people were saying, "I like your shirt," or people would be like, "Oh man, I love your shirt." And I would say, I don't remember if I was really drunk or what, but I basically just said, "Yeah, it's the year of the fish." And then it just was funny, and they laughed. And then anytime that night that somebody said, "I like your shirt," I would say, "It's the year of the fish." So to kind of break it down into like the elementary pieces here, I started with this somewhat arbitrary starting point, a shirt with fish on it, because I liked it. It had value to me. Choosing that first starting point, or that core element, is really, really important. So I had my core element, fish, and then I would see signs. Someone would say, "I like your shirt," and that would provide me with an indication that they liked my core element. And then I would respond and kind of follow this path that was in front of me by saying, "It's the year of the fish." And then I would really, really follow whatever came out of that. I think this type of play really provides us with an opportunity to be inventive. So if I end up saying it's the year of the fish to someone, and then they say, "Well, what's the year of the fish all about?" I can essentially use improvisation or spontaneity or play in order to just like come up with some bullshit on the spot that's fun. And even though it's kind of fake or fabricated, it's special to me. And I think that's what is really important about these systems. And if you're interested in creating something like this, the most important element is that it's the most significant to you. It should just be something that's really special to you. And since then, my ideas evolve through conversation, and very quickly, if that. BS is super important. But as I was wearing these fish shirts, I wore that one fish shirt, and I worked at this bar, and I would tell people about Year of the Fish, and it just kind of started evolving in this really weird way. And I came up with all these concepts that were related to my core element, which was fish. Like fish drown if they don't move in water, or that, if that's true, then sedentary people kind of suffocate if they're just sitting there and not moving, because they have to like have flow. And so like my whole year became all about flow, and either being in a place where I could move through that was still, so I had flow, or I would be in a place and I would be stationary, but then there would be lots of people. So I've done different participatory public art projects, and this was really influenced by that. And it really gave me a good tempo for the year. So like all through 2016, I was just like moving, hustling, doing all these different things. And as 2017 came around, I wasn't really sure what my theme would be. And I had to figure out what my core element was going to be for the year. And I made this bet with my friend Charlene that I could meet Emma Stone, because I just thought that I might be able to do that. And again, I was drunk and I bet $500 that I could do that. And I did not do that. But once I had my core element, I ended up looking for different signs that I liked. I had this paper in my house that I had wrapped, and I just kind of wrapped myself up in it, and I do self-portraiture sometimes. And I was like, I kind of feel like a mountain while I'm wearing this, and I have this thing wrapped around me. And then I was like, you're the stone, okay. So basically I just like started incorporating different elements and then attaching other things to it. So right now, what I'd like you to do, what are some elements that you like? Do you like fire, water? Do you like the ocean? Do you like clouds? So write down some things that you really like, or just have them in your mind. Things that you just really like. I'm seeing wind, jade, sun, moon, perfect. So like anything that's elemental, just kind of like write that stuff down. So then the next year, I decided it was going to be the year of the sword. And again, if you want to use this as a framework in order to create a theme of the year, that's great. You can also use it for different things. It's something that in its smallest form can be, I choose that birds, in particular hummingbirds, are very significant to me. And I take that as my core element. And then I look for hummingbird things. I might see someone with a shirt that has a hummingbird on it. And I go and tell them, I really like your hummingbird shirt. And then it gives an easy introduction to something else. It allows you to see a sign and then find a path that's related to that sign. So I did this Year of the Sword thing. And I just thought about sword and what does that mean? And I was Googling things. I think an important element to this, and if I said this already, I apologize, but it's just to think really exhaustively. If you think about something enough, it'll evolve. That's my personal opinion, but I think it's really true. And so I just kept thinking and I kept Googling, and I found Miyamoto Musashi, who's the greatest swordsman that ever lived, arguably. He's the sword saint of Japan. And he wrote this thing called The Path of Aloneness. And he had all these different tenets that I ended up kind of absorbing into my being for that year in particular, but also things that I've taken with me as I've gone along. Things like think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world, or never let yourself be saddened by a separation. They're just these really amazing concepts. There's like 29 of them, I think. If you're interested in checking out, I'd highly recommend it. But I also do projects in the subway. I'm not sure if any of you heard about it or saw when people were writing on sticky notes after the election in 2016 in New York. But I did a project that went very viral, and I ended up with a book deal and all of these different things. But I did this project late in 18? And if you look at it, it's got this particular color set, and I just kind of went arbitrarily to the store to pick it out. But if I was to call this color set something, I would call it Swordfish, which I think is really interesting. And I didn't really realize at the time that there's a stonefish and there's a swordfish. And so like for those 3 years, it was possible that it was just You're the Fish the whole time. And I was really excited, like totally elated to find that out. And I think one of the cool things about crafting a system for yourself that provides play and meaning for you is that you can have these epiphanies and these moments that are like really fun and interesting. And like seriously, 2 years after I started Year of the Fish, to like have that come to me, I was like, whoa, that's so crazy. Anyway, it's just a way to have fun in life, I think, if you want to use it that way. So when I chose Year of the Sword, I was going through a breakup, and I was, not, I was moving out of my apartment at the time. And so I think it would be great if everybody at this point kind of writes some things that are related to their life, some things that you might be going through, challenges, maybe exciting things. This would be a good time to write down some goals or objectives, maybe things that you're interested in doing. And again, you have like an animal, you have some external structures, and you have an element. If there's any other things that are that you want to kind of add to your list of core elements that are significant to you, you can. It could be like, I love video games and I'm a paladin class when I'm playing them, or something like that. But just jot a little list down, and I'll give you another 30 seconds for that. Okay, I'm going to move on, and then we're going to be moving into our groups very soon. So I kind of just want to, again, break down. I know this is a really quick overview, and I would love to like dive into it, but an hour is actually a pretty short time. So I want everyone to kind of think of the narrative wayfinding methodology is find a core concept, or we'll call it like a core element that's really significant to you. It should really be mostly significant to you and not really anybody else. And then what we're going to do in your exercise, and then something that I do over a really long period of time, is I add concepts in to that core element to kind of build the framework. And I'll give you an example of that. With my fish shirts, I really liked Year of the Fish. And I was talking about it when people would come to the bar that I worked at, because they would say, I really like your fish shirt, people that I didn't know. And then I would like go into my litany. And by the end of the year, I had like this really robust litany about only being in still places if I'm movement and flow and energy and like all these different philosophical elements. And I also started collecting fish shirts. So I have like 6 to 8 fish shirts of different kinds that I asked for. But since I was excited about Year of the Fish, and then my friends in turn were excited about Year of the Fish, if they saw a fish shirt at a thrift store, they would just buy it for me and they would give it to me. Or if my parents saw a fish shirt, or I'd go to my grandparents' house and then they would give me a fish shirt. And I see in the chat that somebody says fish, like the band. Not the band. The band doesn't count. Just fish, like with gills and stuff. Great. So I'm going to answer questions at the end. And what we're going to jump into now is a small group activity. And what I'd really like for people to do, I'm going to give you about 15 minutes, and I want to be sensitive. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes because I want to be sensitive of time, and I'd really like to do a Q&A. Again, conversation, I think, is the best part about being in a group. And so what I'd really like for you to do when you go into your small group, you're going to get put into a group with anywhere between 3 and 6 people. And what I'd really like for you to do is share a few of those core elements that you wrote down, like if you wrote down sheep, or if you wrote down clouds, or if you wrote down orchid, something like that. What I want you to do in your group is to take turns. So you'll have like just 1 or 2 minutes per person. And I want you to share with your group as many things as you can that are related to that thing. So like, what does this thing make you think of? If I say if we can practice now, I think it would actually be really cool. I'm going to say a core element, and I'd like everybody to write whatever the first thing that they think of is. Okay? So, is everybody ready? So write down what you feel like is related to clouds. So I'm seeing dreaming, imagination, bright, fluffy, levity, shapes, fluffy, Nimbus 2000, sleeping, shade, Final Fantasy VII. This is exactly what I'm talking about. There's such a diverse list. They're all related to the same core element. So when you're in your groups, I would love for you to do that for your group. You can either type it out if you're not talking, or I would encourage everybody to have a conversation, okay? Christina, can you break everybody into groups at this point?
Yes, I can.
Sweet. So you should all go into your groups, and then you don't have to do anything to come back. You're gonna have an option to go to your small group. If you don't wanna do it, don't say yes. Just, you can hang out in the main area, and then we can kind of chat here and get into some Q&A here. And then if you, I really encourage you to go into your small group. So you should have an option for that.
So just as a warning, when we open up these rooms, it's going to look like you're being kicked out of Zoom. You are not. You're going into your smaller room, and we will set it for you to come back in 10 minutes. And I highly encourage you to participate, because these are often the highlight of people's field trips, being able to chat with one another and apply the things that Matthew walked us through. So we're going to get ready to do this. Make it 10 minutes. And we're going. And is anyone in the main room but wanted to be in a breakout room? You can let me know.
I can't talk on video, so I came back here. Would love to know if you use this for any specific purpose. Like, do you have an end goal with this narrative? I don't have a specific end goal. One of the great things about creating a framework is that you can use it as a foundation, or if you can use it, or you can use it for any purpose you want. I forgot to give a really good example of how I've applied this, but I'm going to tell this to people when they come back. But my theme for the year this year is goldfish. And I came to it because I was really interested in growing, and I was also really interested in sharing with other people, you know, some of the stuff that I've been working on. So doing this workshop was actually a really big part of that. And so I started out the year with goldfish in mind as my theme. It was really funny because the first person that I met was this woman named Amy Van Doren, who's a matchmaker in New York. And she's just so awesome and just this really interesting person. And she almost entirely wears orange all the time and has like this crazy orange bob. And it was just weird because the moment I saw her, I thought, wow, that's goldfish embodied in a person. And we were doing this conversation. It was kind of like a panel thing. And she ended up saying like, hey, do you want to get a drink after this? And I just felt really tired, and I felt like I didn't want to go. But then I end up thinking like, if I can't say no to this goldfish right now, and it was just a way for me to set myself up to say yes to something. And I think that that's the end goal of these frameworks, is to create a system where you're walking around and able to see signs that you wouldn't normally be able to see. It could be, this is another example. I'm going to share this again with the larger group, so I apologize, you're going to hear it twice. But I was at this creativity conference, and this woman had orange shoes on. They were like just the perfect shade of goldfish. And I said, we happened to be walking in the same direction. And I said, hey, I really like your shoes. They're very goldfish. And then she thought that was interesting and was curious about why I said goldfish. And then I, went on with my year of the fish explanation. And we ended up going to the same conference. And she ended up being the wife of the speaker at this event that I was going to. So I ended up talking to him, and we got really chummy, and then my brother came over, and they live near each other. And so these types of frameworks just create the ability for you to see something and then walk down a pathway that it presents for you. And without the year of the goldfish framework, I don't really know if I would have talked to that person with the orange shoes. I just probably wouldn't have. So that's like a main goal. Yeah, the can't say no to the goldfish is like totally a good motto. I agree. And thanks for that question. If anybody else has questions, feel free to ask.
Just so you know, they have 3 minutes left in their rooms.
Perfect. That's great. I hope people are having good conversations. Yeah. So Lovid, sorry. Short. I'm trying to understand your name. Yeah, so the association is to create social opportunities. That's one way to look at it. Another way is to use it to create work. On the next slide that I'm going to show you once it starts is going to be a visualization that I made with goldfish in mind as a starting point. So for me, it's really important to think about lots of different things, and I like to not feel bored. And this is just one way where I can not feel bored almost ever. I'll wait to share like a really significant takeaway, but there's something very goldfish about everyone's situation right now, which I find like really, really interesting and related to the year. So yeah, I'm gonna share that one when everyone comes back, but I find that to be really weird. Christina, what did you write down? What's one of your core elements?
Elements for clouds, water, ocean, moon.
Cool. Is there any particular reason why you chose moon?
I just feel like sometimes it feels very significant in my life, and it's both calming and sort of curious.
That's cool. So I was in Korea, and I was talking to this fortune teller who was reading my star chart. It was really fascinating. It was being translated by a girlfriend at the time. And it was the most interesting and intense experience of one of many intense experiences of my life, but like a top 10 for sure. And it was so crazy because some of the things that they were saying were so poetic. It was unbelievable how poetic it was. And one of the things that they said was that that in the like sun moon scale, I was like really far on the moon side, but that I was very lucky because a lot of moon people aren't able to create fire for themselves, but that I had like this special talent to create fire just for me. So I was like, whoa, like Moonfire? And they were like, yeah, like Moonfire. I was like, sick, that's great.
Oh my God, Moonfire. That's amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, I don't know if anybody is interested. You said you wrote down clouds, but like the clouds in New York right now are just like crazy awesome.
Whoa.
They're like so good. They're very cool.
Okay, so the time is up in the breakout rooms.
Okay, so people are going to start flooding back in.
Yep.
Here they come. While we're waiting for people to show up, can we make it so that people can chat? So I think at this point you'll be able to unmute yourself, or it would be really great if you could raise your hand, and then Christina's going to pick you out. Does anybody want to share a reflection or something that was really cool from their breakout group?
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I chatted with Anna, and oh my gosh, she's a wonderful woman, and I forget her name. There were like there were 5 of us in the room, but really 3 of us really showed up.
Okay.
And we all agreed that you are hilarious.
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
We came here with pen and paper. We're like, we're gonna learn this narrative, and we have the pen, and you start out with the fish shirt, and then Emma Stone decided you're gonna meet her and dressed in brown paper, and I've been laughing the whole time.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you for saying that.
What's been amazing though is, you know, you really teaching me. I have a theme for my life every year, but it's always this serious theme. I'm like, okay, game changer. I'm, you know, if he could do the fish and stone, I'm trying something else. So
yeah. So, you know, sometimes people will pick these like really intense themes like strength or resilience, and that's not bad. That's awesome. But also if you pick bear as a theme, like they're super strong. And then also you have all these other things, like if you're feeling sleepy or kind of tired one day, you can be like, I'm like a bear, I'm hibernating. It's cool, like no big deal. So
love
anyway,
it, love it.
yeah. I see there's a hand raised. Barbara has her hand raised.
Hi there. So I was with 2 Sarahs and a Charlene, which is going to be the name of my new rock band. And the funniest thing that happened, we all shared an animal. And the strangest thing that happened is we said exactly the same words, but not common words. For example, mine was a sea turtle. I wrote down, go with the flow. And one of the Sarahs said, go with the flow before I said it. I mean, it was just really interesting. So I thought it was a lot of fun. And it was so much fun talking to an actual human being.
Sure.
Other than my husband. So, yeah.
You can come to more sessions for Creative Mornings. I highly recommend it. There's other sessions.
Oh, I've been going to sessions. It's been
cool. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That reminds me, I didn't have my notes up, so I really just glanced over some stuff. But a friend of mine, Noor, who I think is in this room somewhere. Noor, are you here? Are you in? Can you, if you're here, can you raise your hand? Anyway, she was telling me, I gave this talk before the new year so that people could think about New Year's resolutions and things like that. And she chose water as her theme for the year and ended up making a playlist that any song that she heard that was related to water, she plugged into this playlist. And her dad told her this really inspiring quote about water that she just like really resonated with. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. Someone kind of asked like, what's the point of all this stuff? And the point is just to create something that creates meaning for you. Whether it's, you know, you're as water and you see this water, you buy this water painting, and then every day you think about it. Or if your theme is sea turtle and you think go with the flow, if you have this shirt with a sea turtle on it, when you wear it, it gives you this really great framework for going with the flow. Those are like the reasons that you would do this. I know it's sort of abstract, but the point really is for you to create something for yourself. And then does anybody else want to share anything from the small groups? Maybe we can do one more. I see Teeny has her hand raised. Teeny, are you here?
Oh yeah, can I share? Can you hear
You're
me?
here.
Oh hey.
Hey.
I love breaking off into the groups. That was really, really fun. And let's see, I was with 3 other lovely individuals, and they were from all different places. One was from Canada, and the other one was from Mexico, and the other girl was from Sydney. So it was so cool. It was like a whole mishmash, and I'm from New York.
Nice.
So yeah, hey, what's up? And I feel bad because I can't remember everyone's name, but I remember our lovely Mexican lady. Oh, Paula, yay! She brought up the theme of fire, and then we went on this whole long tangent, which was so cool. Katya, another woman was like, brought up the ocean, and it was totally the opposite, right? But they all make sense because that's another element, right? Fire and water.
Yeah.
And then I don't remember her name, but the other woman from Sydney, I asked her about the fires in Australia because she's in Australia, and I don't know, I felt like that could have been a really hard thing to bring up, but I figure we're all in the fucking toilet right now in the world, so whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And like we're in the thick of it in New York too. So, the world is burning on fire, but so we went with that, and I'm like a free associating person too. And I had this fortune cookie from a long time ago that I saved. And
Okay. Tell us about it. Read it for us.
Yeah. I have a little music box that I was showing everybody that I got from Seattle a long time ago. It's really special to me, and I save all my really cool fortune cookies, fortunes. And I went through it, and I found the fortune I was looking for. And it is, if the world seems cold, kindle a fire to warm it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So this is like such a good example of kind of what I've been talking about is already people often they use these different systems in order to find opportunity or meaning. Like fortune cookies are a great example of an external system that's like really common, that, you know, you go to this restaurant, you get this fortune cookie, everybody kind of in on it. Everybody knows a little BS, but also if you get one that hits you, it's really good. And so this is just a way for you to kind of create that for yourself. And I want to share my screen one more time so that I can kind of give you like this last little piece. And then if people want to stick around for a Q&A, we can, but I kind of want to be sensitive to time. So it's earlier this year, I choose my years in September. And then I go from September until the following January 1st. So it's actually a 15-month calendar where I have a taper up and a taper down. So if this last year was Year of the Sword, and then it tapered down from September until January 1st, and then Goldfish was my last theme, which ended up being the theme this year, and it started in September and then kind of ramped up until January 1st. And the reason that I chose Goldfish was because, I don't know, I heard somewhere that goldfish grow to the size of their container. And what happens is, as long as they're alive, if you put them in a really big tank and you give them enough food, they'll just be nourished and they'll just continue to grow. And I think it's fake news, but I've seen pictures of like these giant goldfish that end up out in the wild, and they just get huge, and then people will catch them and they'll have like this giant, just massive goldfish. And so I thought that 2020 for me was going to be about growth. It was going to be about nourishment. It was going to be about like getting as large as possible. And essentially I've used that as a guiding light from the beginning of the year. And if you look at, I hadn't started a company or anything, but I really wanted to. I wanted to kind of create a container for some of my different projects that I do. And so I ended up starting Art Plus People, which is a creative collective of people that do participatory public artworks. And I really, wanted to give it an aesthetic. I didn't know what that should look like. And so I kind of just wanted to show you this image to say that I picked that orange color because it's very goldfish, and then the rest of it is kind of water to me. And so it's a very abstract version of goldfish, but it was really nice because it gave me a framework in order to create a visualization. And someone asked during the breakout groups, I was in the main room, and someone asked, like, what's the purpose of all of this? Like, is there an end goal? And the answer really is that there isn't an end goal. It's something that you can use as a tool in order to find other things. If I have goldfish as my concept for the year, and I just put that intention out into the world that I'm like looking for gold, and I'm looking for things that are related to money and shiny things. And also I allow myself to be forgetful. These things don't always play into my everyday life, like every day. But when this opportunity arises, something will show up, and then I'll be able to respond to that. An example, at the beginning of the year, I was in this conference, or I went to this event for a dating talk. It was a matchmaker named Amy Von Duren was going to be giving a talk about dating. And I show up, and she is just, I'm going to bring up a picture because it's just so worth sharing. She is the most goldfish person that I can possibly imagine. And she has this orange bob, and she wears almost entirely orange clothes. Here we go. I don't know if anybody is familiar with New York, but everyone's cheering right now because it's 7 o'clock. If you need to go cheer, you totally can. But anyway, check out this person because she's just the coolest. So this is Amy Von Duren. She's just like the gnarliest person and just so fun. And when I saw her, I just thought goldfish immediately. And it was really fun because she did her talk, and it was really interesting. And then after, I was just going to go home, and I was kind of on my way out. And she said, hey, do you want to hang out and have a drink? And I was like, I kind of thought about it. I was like, I'm a little tired. And then I just thought to myself, like, how can I possibly say no to the goldfish right now? Like, just what? I would just be, there was no way that I could say no. And we ended up being really good friends, and she's become very close to me and very important in the last month. And so, would I have said yes if I wasn't doing Year of the Goldfish? I don't know, maybe. But these systems and the end goal is really so that you can say yes. They're so that you can feel less pressure, and so that you can just live life in a way that's playful and fun and full of like opportunity and these random signs that show up that create purpose and meaning. And so that's it. If anybody wants, we've been going for about an hour. And if you want to ask questions, raise your hand and we can do a little Q&A. I'm happy to stick around. If you need to go, you can go. But let's chat. Okay. Also, before people leave, if anyone wants to check out some of the programming that we have for Art Plus People, I do a creative conversation series called Creative Lunch Club, which is really fun. And we do all sorts of different things. So does anybody have a question? You can raise your hand. Questions? You can also write them in the chat.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
Alex Ann?
Alex Ann, or
Cool.
double A like the battery. Have you ever thought about the golden years or the golden girls, tomato, potato?
Are we talking about, I don't know what the golden years are. I know Golden Girls is a show, right?
Yeah, the golden years are, the seniors, the golden age, senior citizens, elderly.
Okay.
I've grew up really close with my grandparents and was always a cheerleader. And through high school, I created this Cheers for the Golden Years.
Oh, cool.
We'd visit nursing homes and anyway, bring positivity. So especially these past few months with the pandemic and specifically seniors being at the highest risk population, and just sort of your quest with goldfish and thinking about gold. I was just curious, has that specific population, maybe not because the golden years isn't something you necessarily knew until now, but yeah, I was just curious on your thoughts.
Sure. So in terms of golden years, if I think about people that can provide, that can just provide lots of different things, wisdom, resources, like ideological resources, different ways to think about life, perspective, totally. I think it's a great path to follow. I started this project called sociallydistant.us, which is a listening project. People can call in and share whatever they're going through with COVID-19. And that's actually a really great way for people to connect and share what they're going through. And a lot of people of varying ages have shared what they are going through. And so that's one way. I haven't applied it specifically to the golden year demographic intentionally, but I think that's kind of in the same vein. And now that you've told me that, you've given me another concept that I can attach to my core element. So I'll check that out.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, we lost my grandfather, my grandpa last month. So there's just been this whole journey of grieving and talking with my granny. I've sort of called it our like good morning, MOURNING, because mornings are the hardest because that's when she would give him his medicine. So anyway, just putting it out in the universe, good morning, and specifically our grandparents. I think they need a lot of love, creativity, and to be a part of the conversation. So thanks, everyone.
I would love for people to be part of the conversation too. Thanks, Double A. Appreciate it. Again, I put into the chat that website, if you want to check it out, is sociallydistant.us. There's a telephone number. You can call in, share your story. You can listen to other stories that people have shared. Check it out. I see there's a couple participants. I see Fanny, Lexi.
Yeah.
Fanny, great.
Hi. I'm just noticing in the chat a couple of questions, and I have a plus one.
Okay.
You explained the starting your year in September.
Yes.
And then some kind of a upwards curve, downwards curve, and I missed that. Can you just re-explain it?
Sure. So essentially, I think that it's really interesting that people have their year that goes until December 31st, and then all of a sudden it's a new year. And then people on January 1st are like, oh man, new year, new me. I gotta get a gym membership and I'm gonna eat right. And this year I'm gonna get my 6-pack and whatever. And like, I think that kind of dramatic cutoff can be really useful for some people, but I'm not really that type of person. So what I developed for myself is that my themes generally will come to me between June and September. And so I'll kind of know what the next year will be before it comes. And then instead of having this really fast and immediate transition from 2019 to 2020, I guess you could say that I start 2020 in September.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually a 3-month overlap where starting in September, I'm thinking about what my next year is going to be like. And I actually start doing the work that's going to be required to make the next year happen. Because I think if you start the new year on January, you're probably going to take like a month or two to develop your
set
new
up
routine. But if you
Yeah.
set up beforehand, then on January 1st, you can be like sprinting already. And so that's my strategy there.
I like that. All right, I just missed it, so thanks for explaining.
No problem. Yeah, I saw it in the chat too, so thanks for bringing that up. Does anybody else have, I think, Lexi?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. I saw this question also in the chat, and seeing that you've done it for a couple of years now, how do you keep yourself from putting too much pressure on the theme and like actually come up with a theme? I feel like our mind can race and go at so many different things. So do you have like a little bit of a method that you use to like brainstorm or like actually pick one thing?
Generally, I start with a guiding question. So if, I forgot to say this to everybody, that sucks. But one thing that I'll do is I'll think about where I am and then where I want to go. And it's kind of what we did at the very beginning where I had everybody walk away. And I would actually I've never done that exercise before, so I'd really like it for somebody to tell me how that went. But when I was conceptualizing it, I really wanted to think about, if I ask myself, where am I right now? Like right now, I'm just in a chair at a desk. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Fort Greene. I'm like pretty high up. These are all like physical elements of where I am, but mentally I could be somewhere else. Or like mentally I'm in this workshop. And so if I think to myself, where am I now? And where am I going to go? Or where do I want to go? That's one way to think about within a context, what your objective is. And so if before, September of last year, I was thinking about where I was. I didn't have very much money. And I really felt like I wanted to have this umbrella container for my different art projects that I was doing. And I really wanted a community that I could connect to be a part of. And so I just thought about all the things I wanted, and it really boiled down to, I want money, which I don't usually chase, but I was like, I'm going to chase money and see what happens. I'm going to like look for shiny stuff. And then I really want to grow, and I really want my art to grow and to have a container. And so I was like, all right, container, grow. Maybe instead of thinking about money, I think about nourishment. So like, okay. And then I was like, all right, what is stone? This really happened. I thought to myself, what does stone and fish and sword all have in common? Because this is like actually what I was thinking. I was like, I really miss Year of the Fish. It was so fun and people liked it. And I just like, I don't want to just do Year of the Fish again because it seems like, I don't know. And then I was thinking about it, and it just hit me so hard that there was a stonefish and a swordfish. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, no way. I can just do Year of the Fish forever now. And I won't have like, I'm not going back to it. It's just been there the whole time. So that really, I think I mentioned earlier that thinking exhaustively is really something that causes things to come about. So if you're out and you're thinking and you're open, chances are something's just going to show up, and you'll just know when you see it or when you think about it, or you'll share it with somebody else, and then like somebody will just say something that you'll just know. That's my guess.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Teeny asked, weird question, Matt, but do you ever get fearful or paranoid of your theme if it comes up at strange times? Another element that was in my notes that I didn't mention is that one takeaway from this that you should remember is that this system has value because you believe it has value. And you can make anything really important, and you can also do the opposite. You can take something that's really serious and then break it into parts. And I didn't share this with the large group, but like, what a fascinating year to name goldfish when like everyone feels like they're in a fishbowl right now. Like, did I did I know that somehow I was going to end up stuck in an apartment for weeks at a time and only go out once? Did I know that? Did I feel it energetically in the universe? It's possible, but I'm not. What it allows me to do is frame what happens in my life with a tool for contextualization. So I can say, all right, I'm stuck inside. Everyone's stuck inside. Wow, that's really like being a goldfish in a fishbowl, which I could be upset about, or I could just think about what I need as a goldfish. What do I need as a goldfish? I need to be fed. I need to feel nourished. I don't need to grow any larger or be upset about it. I'll just remain the size that I am. And it makes me feel comfortable and I can just hang out. So anyway, that's like, for me, if I saw somebody with a goldfish shirt on and I said, hey, I really like your goldfish shirt, and they ended up being an asshole, I wouldn't care at all. Like, I would just be like, that guy is just some asshole wearing a goldfish shirt. And I wouldn't put a lot of pressure on it being really significant. I would just, I get to choose. That's part of what's great about an internal system rather than an external system, is like, you get to pick all the things that are relevant to you, and you get to throw at all the stuff that is not productive or helpful. Does anybody have any other questions? You can raise your hand. I'm going to take 2 more questions. If you guys want to hang out, then I'm happy to be here. I see, have you ever picked a theme, but life has other ideas and a totally different theme became apparent? Juliet, it's a really good question and it hasn't happened yet, but let's take goldfish as an example. One of the great things about crafting something yourself is that you get to really pick what your takeaway is. So with goldfish, this year really wasn't about being in a, if I thought about kind of trying to grow to the maximum size, and then all of a sudden COVID-19 shows up, and I literally can't do all the projects that I normally do. I do participatory public art predominantly, and I create works that are very physical, like a telephone that you can share a secret into, or a sticky note installation that allows people to write a response to a particular question. And I just couldn't do any of that stuff. Like, my whole year was just ruined. Or at least that's one way that I could have thought about it. I had like $10,000 worth of contracts evaporate, pretty much overnight. And I could have questioned whether my theme was the right theme, but what I did instead is I allowed myself the freedom to think about my theme as how it related to my actual situation. And the theme it's just goldfish. And then I apply whatever thoughts I have related to that and my circumstances. So then I just ended up inside, and I'm in this fishbowl. And it actually made me feel really connected to all these other people that are going through the same thing. It allowed me to contextualize my situation instead of me looking at the situation and thinking, wow, that's not very goldfish. I just did that. It's like the opposite. If you have the core, almost anything will relate to it and be on that theme. Do you have any examples of following signs? A good example was this year I was at a creativity conference, and I said this in the big group. I don't think I said this yet in the small group, or in this with more people. But there was this woman that was walking nearby the group that I was walking with, and she had these like just perfectly goldfish orange shoes on. And as we were walking, I said, oh, I really like your shoes. They're very goldfish. And then she thought that was funny. And we kind of had this conversation about goldfish and fish stuff. And I might have even been wearing a fish shirt at the time. And so we had like a fish conversation. And then we get into the conference and I realized very quickly, because this guy comes up and starts talking to her. And I'm like, oh, this is obviously the wife of the presenter that I was going to the workshop for. And Andrew ended up being this amazing person that gave this fantastic workshop. But then I had this in because I was sitting with his wife. And so I got to talk to him before, and then he came up to me after. And then my brother came over, and they both live in San Francisco. So he told my brother, hey, so good to chat with you guys. If you're ever in San Francisco, let me know. He's a magician and does all these like really wild like ideation things related to magic. And so he's like, if you're ever in San Francisco, like come hang out, you can come to a show. And so that's a really good example of me seeing a sign. And that was an indication that I could have a good conversation. And I said, hey, I like your fish shoes. And then that presented a path. And then while I was on that path, all these other things happened as a result of me just like being on the journey. I was there. So that's an example. Victor asks, how do you, this is gonna be my last question and then I'll say goodbye. Christina, do I need to go? Can I answer one more question? So Victor asks, how do you go from an idea for an art project to deciding to commit to it and bringing it into the world? So I'm a very process-based artist. I'm really interested in how things evolve. And so, let me see if I can figure out, I'll give an example with a couple projects that I'm going to show you. So I often come up with a concept for something and then I just like throw it up on a website and see what happens, or I'll like grab the URLs for it. So this is subwaytherapy.com. This is my website. This is a project that I did in New York in 2016. And really at the beginning of it, I just thought a lot about how people feel better about all the stuff they feel bad about. And I set up a sign that said Secret Keeper in the New York subway, and then I just went for it. And it looks like this often. Different people write in different notes. I write express yourself in a public place like this. And really it just kind of started from me thinking, how do I help people to feel better about the stuff they feel bad about? And then I just decided to do it. Similarly, I think I mentioned that this is sociallydistant.us. It's a website where people can call in. This is the actual number. So if you want to call and share your experience, I would highly encourage you to do that. I would really love it. You can also text the number if you want to. But I have this team that I work with that I actually found through Creative Mornings. I pitched this idea that I would do this telephone where people could collect secrets. That's just kind of what I wanted to do. And then they said yes. And I made this other website called Secret Telephone. And it looks like this. It's a telephone and it's in physical space. You can pick it up and you can share a secret. And then there are all these secrets that you can listen to online. And I'm assuming that you'll be able to hear this, but.
My secret is that my husband is an obsessive shopper.
So, these are real secrets that people have shared in public space.
My name is Mehdi, and I gave up my keto diet because of waffles. Wi-Fi.
So, as a starting point, I just wanted to see if I could collect secrets, and I thought maybe that was a fun thing to do. And then I didn't really know how to do the technology side of it, so I was at this Creative Mornings meetup. They happen every month. If you obviously you know about it because you're on a field trip, but you got to go to the local things. They're just amazing. And I did this 30-second pitch. I said, hey, does anybody know how to do telephone stuff? I have this thing and it kind of works, but it could be better. And then I developed this team. 2 people approached me, and then we developed Socially Distant after COVID-19 began. And so like, just as an idea, I thought I was going to be doing secret telephone all summer long. And then I just couldn't do it. And so I decided to like pivot hard and do something else. And you know, like these.
Hi, and we are from New York. And my boyfriend and me lived together for over 1 month, and we practiced social distancing for a long time.
So, you know, these are all like little pieces of history that are, they're, you know, later on, you might be able to contextualize what's going on today with. So anyway, this is like, philosophically, I could just talk about this stuff forever, but, you know, I just kind of find the starting point and then just allow things to happen and then just kind of follow these paths that show up. Like the transition from secret telephone to socially distant is just, it was just the easiest thing in the world. It was like, oh, well, we can't do secret telephone because that doesn't make any sense. We got to do something else. And everybody has all these things to share. Why not provide an opportunity for everybody to do that? So, you know, yeah, I see Leah saying that the New York Historical Society is collecting info. And yeah, so a bunch of the sticky notes that I had from the election in 2016 are collected by the New York Historical Society and some other museums in New York. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, I just appreciate it so much. If you'd like to get in touch with me, the best way to do it is to, again, I'm going to put this screen up so you can see. Go to artpluspeople.com. You can email me at matthew@artpluspeople.com, or you can find me on social media at artpluspeople. At Subway Therapy is also another great Instagram that I started. It's very fun. I do weekly questions and prompts, and people contribute. I have all these sticky note walls in different places in my apartment. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Please be in touch. I would really love if you're interested in being a part of the collective that creates really meaningful works in public space, or if you just want to connect and you're interested in creative mentorship, I would be happy to help out in any way I can for you to be able to achieve your dreams. And I'll be sending out kind of a best of, or not a best of, I'll be sending out a kind of a tips for narrative wayfinding with a more distilled version of what I said, because I know I couldn't really share everything in the time. So thank you everyone for being here. And again, can we give some claps to Christina? She's just like the most wonderful and awesome and just the best. So thanks for being here. Christina, would you like to share anything before we go?
Just a huge thank you to you. This was wonderful. And thank you to everyone for showing up, turning on your videos, and participating in the breakout rooms. It looks like we had a great time in there and we're able to connect with one another on a little bit of a deeper level. And just a huge thank you. You'll get a follow-up email in 24 hours, which will have that resource that Matthew was talking about. And I am going to close the Zoom, which means you are going to be getting kicked out. But one final thank you and a wave and gallery view. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Thank you.